Okay, so let's have a look at the blood. So the blood has four main components: the red blood cells, platelets, plasma, and white blood cells. So let's start with the red blood cells. So red blood cells, if we look at them from the top, they have this circular shape. And if we have a look at them from the side, you see there's a slight dip there in the middle. Now their job is to transport oxygen around the body. They contain a special protein called hemoglobin, and hemoglobin contains iron. And what happens is that iron is positively charged and it helps it to bind with the negatively charged oxygen. And there is no nucleus, so therefore there's more carrying capacity for oxygen. So that's red blood cells. Platelets are fragments of cells. They're not complete cells. They all have different shapes, and their job really is to form a blood clot. They clot blood. So when you cut yourself, effectively what can happen is bacteria can enter, you obviously bleeding. So the platelets clog up that wound, almost like a plug, and they clot the blood. So the blood gets thicker, and then eventually, over time, that can form a scab. And this, of course, will prevent bleeding and will prevent bacteria from entering the wound and therefore causing infection. So very useful platelets. Plasma is the liquid part of the blood, and it actually transports quite a lot of substances. It transports dissolved carbon dioxide. We've got glucose, we have hormones, and obviously because it's a liquid, we've got water. And it makes around about 45% of the blood. White blood cells help to defend against disease, and there are two main categories of white blood cells you need to know about. There's the phagocytes and there's the lymphocytes. Now, common exam question is to actually draw a phagocyte and label up certain structures. So you'll see here it's got an irregular shape. It's got an irregular shaped nucleus, and I've labelled up the cell membrane, and I've labelled up the nucleus as well. Basically what it does, imagine these were bacteria, is they can change their shape and they engulf bacteria. So don't say things like they eat bacteria, but they basically engulf them and they digest them, which then destroys the bacteria. So they can no longer cause any harm in the body. And the other type of white blood cells are lymphocytes. Now they have this typical rounder shape and a typical round nucleus. It's normally a very, very big nucleus. And their job really is to produce antibodies. So antibodies typically have this kind of Y shape. So every time you get infected by a bacteria, your lymphocytes make antibodies specific to that type of pathogen, that type of bacterial virus, which helps you to destroy them. So there you go. So the blood made up of three main parts: red blood cells for transporting oxygen, platelets to form blood clots, plasma to carry various different substances, and white blood cells to defend against disease.